Real questions, real answers for real life. Come on in and pull up a chair. You're at 1850 Main Street with Michael DelGiorno and David Zanotti.
Now that things are starting to look settled in the presidential primaries, barring any major surprises, is it finally time to start taking RFK Jr. seriously?
So I worry about people being overly concerned overhearing these conversations about RFK. And the part that worries me is the idea that we're really entrenched in the mindsets of it's all about Republicans and Democrats. And any discussion that gets outside the box it makes people uncomfortable, makes them nauseous. They've been told that's evil, that's bad. You can't do that. You can't talk that way. You guys are losing your minds. Don't you know what you're going to do? And there is a mindset, and I've just run into it for the last several days, watching the news, watching people wrestling with this. And I think we'll get through it. It'll be okay. It's not the first rodeo we've ever had, the first time we've ever seen something like this. But I'm troubled. I don't want people to think that I would prefer they not think I've lost my mind. I've thrown away 44 years of experience in presidential elections to suddenly think that I'm saying, gee, RFK is, rainbows and unicorns and yippee-ki-yay, let's do this. I'm not endorsing any candidates in this race, and I am not attempting to steer anybody into anything, except to say this. If people don't like both candidates from the major parties and there's a credible third-party candidate, isn't it possible that a lot of people will say, I got an idea, I'm voting for the other guy?
I don't worry about, I think people are pretty sensible. I kind of have a different take. I view it more as, well, we're in a primary phase, and we've got, strangely, like two incumbents, number one. One that nobody really believes is up for the job. A good percentage believe he's not even going to be on the November ticket. The other is up for the job. He did it once before. He can do it again, and he's still in a primary. So it's kind of like pregame show, and it really doesn't involve an independent candidate yet. That will all change once this is secured. I haven't gotten any kind of feedback from anybody. Are you crazy? You can expect that from pro-Trump people because they don't view anybody else in the game. So there is no other candidate for them. And I don't know what they're going to do in 4 years from now, even if he wins. That's for the party to do. So I kind of just back off and say, okay, I get it. Everybody's in a primary. And for Joe Biden, nobody's allowed to challenge him. And for Donald Trump, it looks like a cakewalk, even though Nikki is bringing out the worst in him. So I think Kennedy's day is yet to come. I will say this, there is a lane. There is a good percentage that aren't interested in either Republicans or Democrats right now. He certainly walks down that lane. He is pro-border security and enforcement, as that came out this week. That should resonate.
That one was really interesting. I mean, you talk about a timely move on his part.
Yeah, I'd actually like to do them one at a time with you because that fascinates me. He's pro-choice, but he's not Planned Parenthood talking points, crazy pro-death like the Democrat Party has become. He's anti-vax. That should resonate with some people that are anti-COVID.
Now, he would object and say he's not anti-vax.
But the perception is that he is. Yeah,
okay.
And
I've listened to his argument on that a lot of times, and I think he is telling the truth about where he is.
Absolutely.
I don't think
nobody understands
anybody.
Yeah, nobody understands it better than him. And he's non-establishment. He's a true independent. And I think there's a lane for that. I think a lane has opened up for that. So I'm not so interested in him being a libertarian. Yeah, that would get him on all the ballots easy, but I don't think he needs that labeling, and I don't think he needs to get on all the ballots to disrupt this election. So I don't see it as, oh my gosh, I'm afraid somebody thinks we've lost our mind. I think he is somebody of great name recognition, of great family heritage, of great intellect, very articulate, though he has a vocal cord issue. And I would proudly say everyone should vet him just like any other legitimate candidate, and there should be no apologies for doing so.
Let's talk about the libertarian thing. It makes sense because they are already qualified on all 50 ballots as a party to be able to introduce a candidate. When Dwight David Eisenhower was considering a run for the presidency, he was recruited by both political parties. The Democrats would have taken him, the Republicans would have taken him. He had his choice. In this situation, the libertarians are willing to take Kennedy, and that puts him on the ballot. And it doesn't mean he's a libertarian. He's saying he's going to run on their party access. He's basically filing paperwork with them, but it doesn't change him from being an independent. It just shortens the process and enables him to get there faster with less expenditures and more hassles.
But it will come with a label. They'll start referring to him as the libertarian candidate for president. And I think there's a true independent lane and a true independence in his name that he doesn't need to do this. And he doesn't need every state to disrupt it.
Well, the problem, though, is if you don't run in every state, then you are running as a spoiler. You're not running to win. And I think the fact that he's moving in this direction is that he's actually beginning to believe he can win, that he can actually, that he can certainly, I think he's beginning to believe he can win, or he can certainly put this into a situation where he would take it into the Electoral College. And remember, the top three names, and he'd be number three, he might be number two, who knows, in the Electoral College count.
But he'd be in the running for vice president.
No, he'd be in the running for president of the United States.
Yeah, president or president.
So it would certainly be interesting. So
let me ask you this. This is my first question for you. Probably thought Ron DeSantis, I'm not saying you, pundits, probably thought Ron DeSantis should have run, get some experience as a candidate, set yourself up for 4 years from now as a leading candidate. Same was probably said about Nikki Haley. I'm not so certain that Robert F. Kennedy has done the most to set himself up for 4 years from now.
Bit of a challenge. He's not a young guy. He's 70. So 70 versus 74, there's always a question mark in that perspective. If he executes this race well, I think there's always that possibility that the second time through it could work. And again, the tough part is in all of this, can you believe any of these people? The one thing about Kennedy that appears to be right now attractive to me, certainly, is that he's not overpromising. He's not doing the typical thing. I will do this. I will do that. I will make sure X number of jobs are created. Blah, 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 blah. Presidents don't do any of that stuff. They're cheerleaders at best. Now, we know that. You know the role of the presidency, and most of the people that would listen to what you and I are talking about know the role of the presidency. And so he hasn't fallen into that trap. He brings a very different equation to this. Now, again, it may be that America's not ready. It may be people can't get out of the DNR syndrome. They just can't get there. But I had to laugh because Elon Musk and Kennedy seem to be kind of beginning to move into the same circles. Did you notice that Musk liked the speech that Kennedy made when he was basically saying to young people, tie your parents in a chair and make them go on Twitter, show them what it's like?
Yeah, I don't even know what kind of sway TikTok or Elon Musk or anyone else has. I can tell you that what Robert Kennedy has that reminds me of Barack Obama is that he's good in all settings. So get him one-on-one on a news show, get him one-on-one with an individual on a floor after he's spoken, or get him in a large room. The guy knows how to communicate. I don't know if it's temperament or tempo. I mean, when I think of Vivek Ramaswamy, you get a whole lot of intellect, but it's vomited on you at a very high speed. And there's just a very comfortable tempo and temperament. And there's something, I got to tell you, very presidential and kind and meek about Robert Kennedy. And when you contrast that with the two major party candidates, it really stands out.
It's a very unusual.
If he gets on a stage with both of them, he's going to shine.
Well, now that some of the articles we've been reading also brings that to the forefront because it appears that this is a serious campaign. It just looks very serious. You'd have to be politically blind to not see that lane wide open. And given that Kennedy is the most advanced of these people in the realm of social media and alternative media, with that lane wide open, and he's the most attractive of the three candidates to younger people. Again, and people are kind of teasing about the baby boomers that they're not going to be able to follow this campaign because it's going to be too social media for them. Yeah, but they forget the baby boomers are all in grade school and in middle school when JFK was assassinated, and when
a little older when his father died, yeah.
and when Bobby's father died. I mean, there's instant credibility. There's instant pay attention to this. I think the other thing that's so dramatic about Kennedy that in this lane is that he doesn't present himself as a perfect person. He already comes with an obvious flaw. He's an imperfect person. He's got a disability in his vocal cords. So now you have to listen to him. You have to stop. You have to shut off the television or shut off the surrounding distractions and listen to the man, because it's going to take him a while to be able to warm up to be able to talk to you. But when he talks at a level of experience that none of these other people have.
When you subscribe to 1850 Main Street, you're the first to find out what's happening next with new guests, publications, and events. And when you spread the word about 1850 Main Street, you're helping others find real answers to the real questions facing America right now. To learn more, visit 1850mainstreet.com. And please, tell a friend.
I woke up the other morning and there was a headline in Bill Maher saying, hey, Democrats, if you think you can play this demonization of Trump game and get away with it again, it's just not going to work. And I thought, wow, they've gone so far to the left, they've lost Bill Maher. Isn't that just something to just soak in for a second? Because the parties have really shifted. Now, I do think there's a difference, and I'm not a Republican or a Democrat. I will say Republicans have shifted to living their platform, to which they demonize Donald Trump for doing so. I can't think of one thing Donald Trump did that isn't in their platform. He just did it, and then they don't like the way in which he did it, but his style. But, so that is a perceived extreme shift to the right. It's actually a shift away from verbal narrative center directly into their platform and living it, whereas the left has really shifted. And we talked about some of the pendulums on your morning show, which is actually my morning show called, we're not going to do that old Who's On First. But I played a clip of Joe Biden. The party has shifted, and he is the sitting president, and the party shifted left. And I played a quote of him about marriage between a man and a woman.
That is an amazing quote to go back to listen to Biden endorsing the Defense of Marriage Act, the federal law, and basically saying this is a done issue. It's a settled issue. We don't no reason to even talk about it. Marriage has always been between a man and a woman. That's the way it is. Let's move on. In his own voice.
And we talked about, and I liked playing that clip because, look, he had a scandal at one time over plagiarism. Otherwise, Joe Biden was always a very passionate, not loud older man who's screaming out and Alzheimer's. He was a passionate, eloquent senator. He really was. And he could make great arguments on the Senate floor and even greater arguments on a campaign stage or on a talking head television show. Joe Biden in his prime was very good.
But Biden coming up in his prime never had connections to the massive monster money. So and so that left him outside the elite fringe of the Democrats, and he stepped on himself twice. Twice he had to quit a presidential race because of plagiarism. So he's always been his own worst enemy.
Yeah, he was a liar. Now he's a cognitively impaired liar who might even believe some of those lies. He doesn't even know what's coming out of his mouth. But I love that clip because you could see him in his prime, number one. Number two, you see how far the party has shifted left of where he stood just a decade ago. And so we start doing all these fun pendulum shifts from John F. Kennedy to Ted. His own brother came out of the same womb as him. But look at the ideological difference between John F. Kennedy, as conservative as you could be, more conservative than Ronald Reagan, probably inspired Ronald Reagan. And that's why Ronald Reagan was a Democrat for a time and then later a Republican. But to Ted, and Ted was far left of Biden. I could play clips towards the end. But I mean, we'd all take Bill Clinton today, wouldn't we? I mean, in a heartbeat. That's how far the party's unrecognizable from Bill Clinton. Hey, it's pretty unrecognizable from Barack Obama, though that was the seeds.
And ironically, and you know that this is my least favorite character in the American political scene, but you add Newt Gingrich to Bill Clinton, and what you have is an atmosphere and an environment in which they actually did things that made a difference. They actually were in the process of reducing and eliminating the national deficit.
I think it's affecting Bill Clinton's legacy. I think it's why Bill Clinton Barack Obama, probably far more than Bill Clinton, will be in the Democrat Hall of Fame, if you will. And that's only because the party shifted so far left. I've got quotes of Joe Biden just a decade ago that would get his statue torn down by his own party today.
Yeah.
So the party left everyone,
Yeah.
not just Bill Maher, Joe Biden himself as he's a sitting president. And then the perception that the right went to the right. There's a gaping hole, a sensible gaping hole right down the middle. And when you start breaking it down by Kennedy's positions on issues, that hole gets, well, I guess that's the hole's still wide, and he's knowing how to hit the hole and run north and south fast.
Yeah, he's starting to fill up the lane. He's moderating the way that he talks about the question of abortion. He's discussing COVID in a different frame and perspective to maximize.
Michigan is tailor-made for him. Tailor-made for him.
And this is, I'm telling you.
And New York could be on the table.
We've been through the 270 to win maps. And we just had this conversation on the public square in much greater detail. You can talk about this presidential election and until you're blue in the face. It will come down to maybe 6 states. Now, I know that's frustrating for all the friends that you and I have across all the radio networks that we're privileged to work with, including iHeart and all the rest. If you're sitting in Tennessee, you know which way your state's going to vote. And so what do you do? It's going to come to 5 or 6.
Actually, I had that conversation with my son because he said, well, he can't win. Why would you vote for him? Why are you throwing away your vote? I said, well, first of all, Donald Trump's going to win Tennessee. I know that. I can't blind myself to that. But I have to be true to my heart and my conscience. And I have to vote for it's for my own integrity that I cast that vote.
And see, when things get to the place where you've got a race that is nationalized, but it's not nationalized as a head or a heart, it's some of both. That's something consultants don't know how to deal with. They don't know how to deal with the fact that people are voting in a rejection mode, a protest. That's the biggest power of this lane is it's a place to put your protest, your dissatisfaction with both of these candidates. Now,
they don't have to, and they don't have to stay home, right? In other words, there's a good part of the Democrat Party that is disgusted over Israel, disgusted over the border, probably feel like they're going too far with abortion, probably think they've gone a little too far with wokeness against cops and law and order. They don't have to just sit on their hands and stay home and probably think he's senile. They don't have to stay home. And on the right, they don't have to just settle for Donald Trump. They're going to have a choice, and it's going to be a candidate they can actually get excited about.
We have never had a credible, in the last 44 years, the last 11 election cycles for the presidency, we have never had an independent candidate in an electoral college map environment that was tied at the start and that would come down to 5 or 6 states. And not only does everybody know what the states are, one of the candidates won them 8 years ago. One of the candidates won those states 4 years ago, and they flipped the states by almost the same amount of numbers from round 1 to round 2. It'd be like if Frazier and Ali fought for a third time. Okay? I mean, what have we got? We've seen this show before.
Actually, I'm very interested in what you think those 6 states are, because it's not it used to be, it all came down to Florida, Ohio. And then, now
right.
we have, then they threw in Pennsylvania. Things have changed. Are we talking Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada with Virginia and Pennsylvania and Georgia? Or are we talking about something else?
Georgia's not in it. Ohio's not in it. Florida's not in it. It's Pennsylvania. It's Michigan. It's Wisconsin. It's Arizona and Nevada and Virginia. You got 6 states maximum, and it may not even come down to 6 states.
Yeah, we did it in different order. I did PA, Virginia, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, and then I put the old ones, Ohio, Florida, Texas, and Georgia. So, yeah, we're seeing the same thing. And then there's just one other thing when we're discussing Robert Kennedy. Keep in mind, Nebraska and Maine that split their delegates? If he focused there, that could really throw things into a tizzy.
Yeah, and so we've never had an independent with this much lane space and this much name identification and this much potential in a race that is so equally divided and I'll tell you, Michael, this is driving everybody crazy. It goes back to my opening remarks. I don't like making people uncomfortable. I really don't. But this is a very discomforting time in our country. And for people that are thinking to not understand the environment that we're in, the circumstances that we're in, to fall back into old habits and old patterns and party mindsets and what the media wants us to think, to not see this for what it is. Not only do you've never had a map like this one. You've never had two incumbents running against each other where they've been flipping states, the same states, over two sets of elections. You've never had all those things plus the arena of digital media communications and social media.
By the way, Robert Kennedy was the one that said he doesn't think debates are going to have an influence. Podcasts will. And he's proven that. He's at 20%. We haven't had a clean debate yet.
And the number one issue that the Republicans are attempting to make this race about is immigration. And not only did Kennedy come right up alongside the Republican position and back the state of Texas, brilliant move. It happens to be the right move to make, period, and a great move to make in his position. I mean, he comes right in and he sets the table in the right direction. This guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah, he said Texas. Well, it's a stance for states' rights, number one. He felt like Texas had no choice because of the president and this administration's failure. But then he took it one step further and said, if elected, I'm going to end this once and for all. And I think that's a nod to how the left and the right, kind of like they do with abortion, have played this for votes, not for national security. I'm going to destroy the cartel's business plan. And if a country doesn't have borders, it's not a country. I mean, it was the way he elaborated that firmly gave him a very desirable position. And his perceived vax position is going to be perceived. His non-establishment position and name recognition, the way he's softening the choice issue, not going pro-death Planned Parenthood, and now adding the border to this. I mean, it's. I guess what I would say is this lane is now taking on skin.
And then he drops the other piece, right? He just happens to mention. Now, remember, he's a lawyer. He's won a lot of big cases against a lot of big companies.
When it comes to the environment and vaccination, this guy gets it, knows how to explain it. The media likes to twist it.
He drops this one. He says, oh, yes, and it's true. The Trump people did reach out to me and ask me if I would consider the vice presidency.
Well, there's a lot of twists and turns that I wanted to end with that. So kind of like Vince Lombardi at the chalkboard. I mean, we're pulling guards, we're pulling tackles, we're opening up the hole. It's perfect timing. It's the weakness of the defense. It's the environment of culture and the political air of the day. Here's this gaping hole. Here's a guy that knows how to go through it with precision and speed and agility. Now let's get to surprises. I am of the firm opinion Joe Biden's not going to be on that ticket in November. Do the Democrats go back?
Well, somebody's going to end up buying somebody coffee on that one.
All right. So, but if they do, if they decide they're going to ride it out and risk it all because the map is 50-50, fine. But I still think there could be a change there. Would they go to Kennedy? I don't care what anybody says. You put Robert Kennedy with Donald Trump. Game changer, game over. I don't care who Taylor Swift endorses. Oh, you didn't hear? Biden's trying to get Taylor Swift's endorsement.
The conversations are just getting started. To get connected, check out 1850mainstreet.com. We don't data mine anyone or sell your information. Subscribe today so you don't miss a single conversation. We'll see you next time here at 1850 Main Street.